Hello, Georgia Regents University colleagues. I am Bridget Trogdon from Mercer University. I was asked to make you just a little whetting your appetite video for flipping the classroom and a little bit of why I flip the classroom and how I do so. I think it's appropriate for a faculty development event on flipping to actually have a little bit of flipping within. So this video will give you a little bit of the content, and then hopefully within your session you'll get a chance to really kind of talk about it. My contact information is on this front slide, and I believe it's also on your handout, and I'd be happy to talk to anyone at any point if you want any more information. The reason that I started flipping the classroom really has to do with this. College students are different now than they used to be. And instead of thinking about these kids these days, I think it's helpful sometimes to really look at where they are and what they're doing. When I was in college, and maybe when many of you were, our lives were a little bit more focused on the academics. We would go to class, we would do homework, and go to professors' office hours in order to clarify concepts. But now our college students are hyper busy. In addition to class, a lot of them have work. They're worried about being as competitive as possible, so they do more internships, they do more clubs, they do more volunteering than perhaps normal. I think for those students who are what we call non-traditional students, although most students now are in that ilk, if they have full-time jobs during the day and they go to school at night, they have children, then their time is even more crunched. And so instead of a nice student on the quad, we end up with a zombie-looking Squidward. But what is missing with the modern college student is the fact that they don't always have a chance to come clarify concepts with their professors. I think one of the major questions that faculty need to ask ourselves is, where do my students need me? When do they need me? Why can't they approach me when they need me to? And this really kind of comes in with Vygotsky's zone of proximal development, that there's a difference between what they can do without help and what they can do with help. And so what we need to do is really help them to get that help. I think also sometimes we think about our subjects in terms of content, but there's also skills. And with the advent of modern technology like what you're taking advantage of right now, the content is often easier to acquire and the skills take a little bit more practice, and that is sometimes where the students really need the guidance from an expert. I'm not really going to talk about this much in this little video today, but the flipping that I've done primarily is with my organic chemistry class. It hurts me a little bit to put this data up, but student class sizes started increasing just because of pressures on the numbers of pre-health students. I'm sure you have the same problem. And the failure rates were increasing, and the GPAs really weren't getting any better. A lot of the students just weren't passing the class. And so I decided I needed to look at my pedagogical practices. So previously I would always have just lecture-based classrooms, and then I would do some problems in class when I could. But I decided to flip the classroom, where my Monday and Friday session were still traditional classes just to kind of see what happened, but then my Wednesday class became a problem session. So it was student focused, it was focused on group work, and I became the guide rather than the person in front of the classroom just talking at them and giving them more of a chance to do work on their own. So one way that I did this, just one little example, was through creating videos. So I would have a video that would go up every Monday night. Let me flip back here. So a video would go up every Monday evening, and instead of having new content delivered in class on Wednesdays, the students would learn through the video. One such example is here. And the video was actually something that I made. There are lots of different places of getting these. I think you also have a video on your handout. I don't think you can hear that at the moment, but I would actually draw on the screen and explain the way that I usually would in class. And that was something that students could acquire outside of class. In class, we used a little handbook. This is just one example. This is an organic chemistry as a second language, and so we would do problems. So the video in this case was all about enolates, and then in class we would do problems directly related to enolates where they would get a chance to expand out the knowledge. I would recommend using external problems just because the students also had traditional homework from their textbook, and so the students who were really good and would do a lot of the homework on their own anyway, it wasn't really an additional practice. And so I used just kind of a simple cheap notebook. In addition to these, I've also used at different times the organic chemistry workbook for dummies. It cost less than $20. The students would bring it to class every day, and it acted as a workbook in class. So that's kind of the big thing here, is to look at that balance between the content and the skills, and how the students can be able to have both in the presence of the professor who can help them. I've also given you, a handout, which I'll talk about in just a second, but I do want to show my data for the students. I compared them in several different ways and looked at statistical relevance from historical data. And the flipped students performed over 2 standard deviations higher than the non-flipped. This example here is just looking at the students who earned the grade of B. This held true for students who also earned the grade of C or D. The Fs were hard to compare because none of my flipped students earned an F, which I thought was interesting, and the A's didn't show a strong correlation either. So the flipped really helped out the students in the middle. And I also think that the data here with the DFW rate is really interesting. They were over 3 standard deviations less likely to have a D, F, or a W in the course just from taking 1 day a week and doing more engaging pedagogical practices. There's a lot about flipping out there. If anyone wants to learn more, I had given you all a handout that had some resources that I found helpful. And also, if you want to talk more about that, please email me, and I look forward to hearing from you more if you wish. I wish you the best on the rest of your workshop.